Well, the Club World Cup starts today, which was something that was going to happen. Kikirecho, how are you? Very good from Madridismo al Dia. How are you, man?
Hello, very good.
It was going to be done. Do you remember it was going to happen in the year of the pandemic, not in 2020, but in 2021, the following year, and everything was postponed. And it was going to start in China. So this is an idea that FIFA had for a long time, and well, it can be done there. This is going to be the first edition. It starts tonight with the match between Inter Miami and Al Ahly, not Al Hilal. Let's see if we get confused during these days. And I wanted to go over with you, apart from other topics related to key positions at Real Madrid and specific names, a bit about the scenario, what we might face, and how this month of the tournament we've never experienced before could be, which starts tonight.
Well, the truth is that taking a bird's eye view of the groups, how we have them lined up, I think there are quite evident points of favoritism, although in some cases there might be some doubt about who theoretically should be second or third. But I think which is a series of groups that are quite well set from the preliminary is something that the people will say, especially the average anti-Madrid fan, which I hear a lot. No, but look at what teams are out there from any random league. I don't know. Hey, let's see if you think that Argentina, when it wins the World Cup, face Spain, Germany, Brazil. I mean, that always in the World Cup tournaments, being something worldwide, you find, obviously, national teams from lower ranked confederations. This applies to clubs. There are teams from Australia, Africa, Asia, and it's normal. It's logical. But from there, Miguel, I think it's true that there are quite well-defined groups.
Yes, obviously it's a World Cup, and a World Cup, Al Hilal's turn in
A World Cup for national teams, it could be what I'm telling you in Slovenia. Say, that's normal. Indeed, as you say, Argentina lost the first match against Saudi Arabia in the Qatar World Cup, which they ended up winning, and the World Cup also involves this. Hey, having qualified, it feels like it, but the anti-Maderismo will be a narrative for all these years.
When they play it, then it will have value. Then it will have value.
Hey, let's start with the group. Let's see. Real Madrid, Al Hilal, Pachuca, Salzburg. First match against Al Hilal, second against Pachuca, if I'm not mistaken, and third against Salzburg. What do you know about the three teams? What I know is that the Arabs have signed. They have signed well and have signed no less than, I don't know if you will have time for much, Simone Inzaghi as the new coach. Is there something there that gives you at least a little bit of at least respect in this group stage?
Man, let's see. I respect everything, the utmost to the three teams. We got to know Pachuca in the Mundialito, which would indeed be like the Mundialito, which Real Madrid won. They also won against Pachuca in one of the matches. We know them. Al Hilal will be there, which in terms of powerhouses, for example, is considered stronger than Al Nassr, for instance, and not because of Ronaldo. I mean, just to compare with a globally well-known team. And then we have Salzburg, which honestly, Salzburg, we have encountered in the Champions League as an extremely young team, as a team truly until today, prominently with problems and deficiencies in Sebak. At least what it was this year that we have known about it, a brave qualifying team, but with problems at the back. So Madrid should be first, in my opinion, but the second place here, for example, is what I say. It is very open. There isn't a clear second. Although if I have to take a guess, I think Al Hilal could be a team, although with a new coach, but a great coach like Simone Inzaghi, I think that it is very important. And then you have to take something into account, and I will comment on this for everyone. You have to consider that there are teams emerging in competitions at key or important moments, whether it's the Libertadores, the Copa Sudamericana, or other types of tournaments. I mentioned this to keep the whole process in mind.
There at Red Bull Salzburg, Jurgen Klopp will have a say. I don't know to what extent, as he manages all Red Bull teams. We saw him. We already faced them. They are rivals that, as you said, in the Intercontinental Pachuca. Hold on, something from the Ole Journal popped up here. Let's see. Away with the advertisement. And then before they went to Salzburg at the Bernabeu for Champions. And, well, here about second place. Look, we wouldn't care if we're first. But, of course, the issue gets complicated in the round of 16 because if you are first in Group H, you go against the second in Group G. If you are second in Group H, you play against the first from Group G. That is Manchester City or Juventus. It's understood because Manchester City has reinforced itself very well. Again, it has shaken up the market with a lot of money. And since winter, it is understood that the English team would be first and Juventus second. Watch out, it doesn't have to be like that entirely, but says for the round of 16 already has tough opponents. You know?
Yes, that's why. And we have it's just that Group G and H specify very well what I just mentioned. Group H is open for the second place, where everyone can work to be there, where Al Hilal, Pachuca, and Salzburg can perfectly work for the second place. Although for me, there are fewer chances for Salzburg, the least. But in Group G, for example, the difference between the top two, which should be City and Juventus, is super significant. And I would also say City with Juventus. There's like a significant difference. It must be said that Juve the year has finished in fourth position within the Italian league, that there has been quite a bit of football conflict. They are not yet in that in fact, that there are teams that, for example, like Atalanta, that have recently worked better. And just to give an example, which has less prestige than Juve. So Manchester City is clearly my first choice, and they have strengthened very well. They will have players like Gianni Reinders, Ryan Cherky, for example, and we already know what they have been investing. And I think this city will gradually transform itself, including in this World Cup, into a city that is more recognizable to what we have seen. That is what we have seen, not this year, which we have seen on a lower scale, but on a scale more similar to what City has been lately.
With Rodri already recovered, I don't know to what extent, but with Rodri already recovered.
And with new blood and new players, others who are leaving, like Kevin De Bruyne, I think there has been a cleanup and regeneration and players who will also establish themselves.
Because I must say, well, with Cherky, whom we saw the other day in the Spain-France match by Janicio Nacho, a guy who between each change in a match, his team wins by 5-1. Very promising. I saw him the other day taking a series of shots from outside the area with both right and left foot equally. In other words, ambidextrous, totally and completely.
The Cherky was heavily rumored to go to Real Madrid. Zidane loved him when he was 18 years old. I analyzed him in the Scout Territory segment of the channel I had, and he looked amazing. And he has confirmed it. No?
Well, yes. Complete Group G, Wydad de Casablanca and Al Ain. Let's see, Al Hilal, Al Ali, and Al Ain. We are going to try to differentiate them. Well, it's clear. I think the English team and the Italian team would be there. They would be our rivals. And then on the right side of the bracket, which is where we understand Real Madrid will go, of course, this could be the first of Group B. That is to say, you would see it in the semifinals, right? Paris Saint-Germain. Unless Atletico de Madrid says otherwise, I don't think so, right? Which is one of the first matches. I think we already have that big match this very Sunday. Chelsea could appear there as the first of Group D, which includes Flamengo and Esperance. And not Leon, but in the end, it was between America and...
It's America, right? In the end, I think
it's Lyon. I think in the end, America did not qualify. But, well, both... correct. The team he played for, Carlos Vela and Gareth Bale, right? With whom he won the league, the MLS. Well, let's see. Chelsea is certainly a concern, which we could also face. Do you think this Madrid team, man, is prepared for example, Manchester City? Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain? I mean, of course, there are people laughing at the Club World Cup, okay? But we could end up with City, Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain.
Let's see, of course. That's it.
Was what faced. Remember, Real Madrid to reach the final with Ancelotti, and 2022.
Exactly.
PSG, City, Chelsea. Yes, City in other contexts, sure. But clubs with incredible prestige. That is, super top teams. Chelsea, conference champion. It is true that the conference is what it is, but it's clear that Enzo Maresca has improved Chelsea a lot. I think it's a team that has improved a lot, and particularly Paul Palmer, for me, is the great star of Chelsea. A fantastic player, the City Youth Academy product. The City, we've already mentioned it,
And for me, PSG is the big favorite to win the tournament for the football, for being the European champion, which is the competition, the champions. With what they have, for me, the favorite is PSG.
Yes, for me too, because of how the season ended. I'm seeing the other side of the bracket. I don't want to think badly. I remember the last Copa America, how it went, and some other championship. Wow, it's just that the only tough one that comes to mind could be Bayern, man.
Bayern then or Inter, right? And Inter Bayern, and the one that falls between Atletico de Madrid and the second, right? Would go there.
And the second one over there, right? But I think the right side of the bracket is stronger. Yes.
That is the right side, a priori, is indeed stronger. Then we would have the champion of Group E, which is between Inter and River. I believe it will be Inter. But yes, a priori, the strong side, where Madrid enters right away. So that's the tough side.
Well, although I haven't included the fact that if the first in Group G is City, it would go to the left side, to the left, correct?
But really thinking, I mean, for example, it's that for City, from the groups there are in the group stage, the ones I see more clearly that will be first are Bayern Munich, very clearly for me, Manchester City,
very clearly, and Real Madrid.
Yes, because Paris Saint-Germain and Atletico de Madrid, even though Paris Saint-Germain is better, Atletico can give them a hard time, right?
For me, the most open groups, the two most open, are the ones where the Brazilians are, both Flu and Palmeiras. Because Fluminense, which went through various stages, last year, champion of the Libertadores, now the Sudamericana in the irregular league. Borussia Dortmund is not a very strong team in Europe, hasn't had a great league, but it is a team that has competed against Barca in the Champions League. In fact, they were right there. It's a strange team. But there, Fluminense and Dortmund can clearly fight very much. I think Fluminense can fight. Because then there are the Asians, there's the Korean, I think, in that group. And then Palmeiras has been, I won't say dominant in Brazil, but I think they've won 2 of the last 4 leagues. I seem to recall.
Well, you have good information about Brazilian football at home, right?
Yes, that's why. And Palmeiras has been an incredibly competitive team. In fact, it has competed recently better than Flamengo, which we also consider. Although Flamengo with chances to play second, Chelsea Copete such. And then Botafogo. Watch out for Botafogo in Atletico de Madrid's group. Watch out for Botafogo. That Botafogo right now is a team for me top 4 in Brazil.
Well, we'll see what happens. Madrid debuts on Wednesday. Tonight, the World Cup begins with that match between Messi's Inter Miami, Suarez, Busquets and company against Al Ahly. And, well, there's an attraction here, which is seeing River, right? Because of Mastantuono, whom we will talk about shortly. Before, I wanted to ask you about Madrid's list and such, but we will talk about Mastantuono shortly. And if you are going to stay, because for some, we'll have to stay up late to watch River's matches. But I wanted to ask you about races, because we were disappointed this week and we haven't talked about it. I don't know what you've been saying on your channel, what you thought about this. If Madrid should have been, in this sense, a little more tricky, maybe having explored the Manchester United route, like, all right, you buy it and I'll pay you 40, you earn 22 million, because they would have paid 18. We all knew that Xabi was a very tough negotiator. Not a negotiator, just set the clause and that's it. Benfica, and we don't know if they have asked for more, because the kid is in the Club World Cup with Real Madrid, which I think is part of it, right?
For me, there are 2 very important points within the lack of knowledge, which at least I don't handle the information. I'm not there. But there are 2 issues that come to mind, right? On one hand, it wasn't entirely clear that if you paid the clause, you could take him due to the situation with contracts regarding the Club World Cup in between. That is, I think that from the first onwards is when you could take him. That is to say, it wasn't the typical clause where you pay and that's the end of it. From the 1st of July, it theoretically will be like that.
But something could have been done so the boy could have played, maybe by putting in more money, and perhaps Real Madrid didn't go for that, right? And they didn't want to activate the United issue.
Not regarding the United matter, I believe it was never intended to be activated, because I think that Madrid, in that sense, when they wanted to do everything with Benfica and even want to maintain a good relationship with Benfica, Madrid liked having very good relationships with clubs that they know at some point they'll need to deal with, like Benfica. You never know the future, right? You don't want to have a relationship there that is strained. It is possible that that well, people like Ricardo Ramos Nero have talked about the exchange of documents. It seemed like there was a very advanced process. I think there has been an excess of optimism from Madrid regarding two races. I believe there has been an excess of optimism there. I do not deny that this could have been considered very close to being done. But of course, I think Benfica might have also said, sure, I'll let you have the player. I'm making this up for 48 million. Here we are not executing the clause, but practically so, it's a negotiation. But damn, I want him. Of course, you're going to take him for the World Cup, and I'm competing in the World Cup just like you. So, but since you paid extra for Arnold, they are different contexts, but similar in the sense that the contracts take on a different validity this year. So you handle that part of the salary, and you pay it. Or you pay me an extra for taking him to the World Cup. Be that as it may, I think in the end, economically, it doesn't go badly for Madrid to do it in the following fiscal year. On an apathy and a season level, that might have also been a factor when it came to squeezing or pushing. Maybe Madrid was saying, oh, well, I pay about 45. So it had been mentioned that it was settled at 45. But if I have to reach the 1st of July, well, let's say Semana is more convenient for me when accounting. So if I then have to pay 50 plus a bonus for whatever reason, I prefer to pay 50 plus a bonus starting the 1st of July rather than 45, 48. There could have been many things. A financial issue, a matter of just not reaching an agreement. There could be many situations.
And excess of optimism, maybe from the round, well, what you mentioned at the beginning, right? Excess of optimism because of course, Florentino is a great negotiator. Madrid, the team is more right than wrong in the market, of course. Except for things we've seen in recent years. I mean, it's the reasonable doubt of damn, now why are you going to pay 50 for Carreras when last year you had Davies for that, or even a little less? And what we've seen with the center backs with Llorot and Hausen. Now, nowadays I wouldn't trade Hausen for Llorot, but last year we needed him just the same. And maybe here, well, it's been a bit of optimism, and that's it. Now then, is it fixable? I mean, Fran Garcia for the Club World Cup, right? Next year it's a different thing from the 1st of July. But is this fixable at a sporting level? I mean, do you believe in Fran Garcia as a left back in Madrid, and who would be his substitute for you?
Let's see. Iana and I don't see Fran Garcia as a starting left back in a Real Madrid. I do believe he could be a player, let's say, specific for a few minutes in very particular contexts, or to play matches against teams that are not very strong and give you some relief.
It's a backup plan. It's not wine, but yes.
Exactly. But he can be player number 19 or 20 on the squad. Hey, why not? It could be. But the issue with Fran is somewhat similar to Lucas Vázquez, with less professionalism, not because he isn't professional, but because Lucas has a level of experience that Fran lacks. I mean that Lucas Vázquez, the problem he had, although his performance has generally declined, is that he had to play more than his level should have, right? His level, it makes you think that if you have to rely on a player like that, things are going to go badly because he is a player with limitations. So the issue with Fran is the same. It's a problem that Fran plays against Salzburg, Pachuca, or Al Hilal. In principle, it shouldn't be a big problem because these are types of matches that he can handle at his level. But the issue is that later on, you will come across Mibras. Theoretically, face a City, encounter a PSG. I mean, teams that theoretically, I insist, theoretically, if you come with competitive respect, they will demand much more from you. And there, he will struggle against more talented players. It's my sensation, in that case, as a replacement. There are two names from the academy. One is Jussi, the starting left back of Real Madrid Castilla, with Raúl at various times last season, whom Arbeloa knew very well after a magnificent 22-23 youth season with many standout matches in the youth league, and could be him due to experience compared to Diego Aguado. But it is true that for me, Diego Aguado, who played with the first team against Deportiva Minera in the Copa del Rey as a center back, can play as a left center back or left back, which is the latter position where Arbeloa has used him within the youth team A. He is a player newly out of the youth category by age. But his maturity, his driving, his progressions, his passes, his maturity lead you to think that those 18 years are more mature than the typical 18 of a young project. Diego Aguado has a higher ceiling than Jussi. Being a very combative, fierce player, I see Diego Aguado as superior.
Do you think he will do something unusual? Well, not that unusual, because we've seen this in Ancelotti's Madrid. It could be something unusual. Or let's say a bit avant-garde. It could also be a Guardiola-style move, but
it would remind us of things Ancelotti has already done, like I don't care about the position, but I already have one of the greats, meaning Carvajal at left back at some point. Even this Carvajal just coming off injury because he doesn't trust the others. Is Xabi Alonso going to do those Ancelotti-like things or not? Are you sure there are players who are left backs?
Let's see, it's true that in terms of tactics, Xabi Alonso allows players to occupy spaces freely, but putting in two right backs and one left back is something I don't see. But it is true that Xabi Alonso values a lot. He really thinks that sometimes he does not care who occupies the space, but it has to be occupied by someone for the pressure to be exerted well or for the exit to be effective, or both with and without the ball. However, I don't see Carvajal and Arnold playing together on the wings, one on the left and the other on the right. I don't even see Arnold as an interior, which we also saw with Southgate at Liverpool a few times accompanying Fabinho. It reminds me, for example, of a time at the club already. Henderson, if I remember correctly. But no, I think he will use him as a wing back, as a full back, and that's it. He will compete with him, with Carvajal.
Because that's where I'm going. And to finish the last topic, the matter of key positions, you've more or less hinted at it. Carvajal 30, Alexander Arnold, who do you think? I think in the World Cup it's obvious, but in the season I also think it's obvious because you just signed 30, Alexander Arnold. But let's go. He is going to play, Tani Contas. He is going to be the starter, the Englishman, and Carvajal is going to be relegated to a bench position. How do you think the distribution of minutes will be handled? Because Carvajal has to play. Carvajal is also focused on the national team's World Cup next year, and he is a very important man.
Yes, Natete. The thing is, there's a statement from about a month and a half ago by Carvajal that led me to think that he is going to take on a different role than he has had, not as a leader, which he will continue to be as Real Madrid DNA factory made man, but I do think he will take on a more Modric-like role in the sense of the current Modric. I mean, yes, I think he will be more of an experienced player in the locker room, adding minutes when the team needs him, but I think he is assuming and digesting that he already, let's say his career is at his limit. In fact, he said it himself, that he doesn't have much time left in his career. I think he himself is a person of professional honor and knows that his best days are behind him, which doesn't mean he can't still have some very good days, but perhaps his best matches are behind him in terms of volume, in terms of quantity. So I think Arnold is going to be the starter. And if Arnold doesn't mess up, because I say knocking on wood that he doesn't start playing badly, and things that happen in football, in life, shouldn't happen because it kills you, then I don't think so. I think Carvajal is going to be there. Playing about people like Carvajal, and I think Rudiger can also be integrated a bit. This was also militating in their own way due to physical issues. They will have to assume a slightly different role than they have had due to circumstances.
And those coming back from such tough injuries and progressing gradually just have to understand it. The latest match either way, and we are already in August 15th. This guy is returning. This guy is coming because on August 14th he becomes of age. The league will be about to start. The preseason will already have begun. This kid will say have to adapt not only in age but also in gameplay. Anyway, there's no need to rush him. And I say this because the other day Carreño said he won't be a starter at Madrid. Well, Xabi Alonso came out of training and called you to tell you sometimes things are just said for the sake of talking. No, I know for sure he will be a starter. He said, yes, Asada, he cost you the money he cost you. There's talk about him too, but this boy needs some adaptation. But you, for example, you see him once the season has passed, very likely being able to be a starter. I mean, you see him there as an attacking midfielder or out on the right in a forward line with Vinicius, Mbappé, and the Argentine.
Due to their role and importance. It won't be like Hendrik in the sense that Hendrik had Mbappe, Vinicius, and such ahead of him. Ancelotti in the mix. Each one interprets this as they wish. I also don't know if he will be indisputable upon his arrival. Do I make myself clear? That is, I believe there is a hybrid point. I think you mentioned progressing earlier. It may be that he has to progress from the impact to advance in playing time. So we don't even know if another midfielder will arrive, which could create a domino effect, filling the midfield with another player and indirectly causing him the conflict of not being as much of a starter. We also don't know the formation. It's complicated. We don't know if he will play with two attackers as such. I don't know if he will put him as number 10 behind the forwards. I mean, I mean, this is complicated. Yes, in terms of role, my feeling is that it is progressive growing. It won't be a Hendrick situation. It will be a better situation from the start.
But of course, this is like everything. If the kid arrives and plays the first 25 minutes in the first league match, I'm making this up. And he provides an assist and scores an amazing goal into the top corner, he goes and does it. Of course. So, of course, that's how it is. Look, let's imagine a spectrum of a young kid's arrival.
At one end is Bellingham, and at the other is Goller Hendrick. Yeah, there's Bellingham, who has to be a starter no matter what, and he arrived at 19, but quickly turned 20. And on the other end are the deserving ones, the youngsters who arrive eager to get minutes. But logically, they know they'll be warming the bench. As was literally said, Ancelotti, I think Mastantuono would be somewhat in the middle. Mastantuono, I think, doesn't come with that. And so he arrives younger than them with that label of being promising. Let's see what happens with me, and so on. I think he arrives not as much as Bellingham to be a starter, far from it, but somewhere in between.
By the way, it might benefit him in a way and harm us because Bellingham is key, but the operation might provide an entry point the first month and a half of the competition, almost 2 months that Bellingham won't be there. Because of the operation, they can make a very natural entry in the number 10 position behind Mbappe and Vinicius and populate that midfield with intervention Tchouaméni, Valverde, and another midfielder. Putting Güler, putting Camavinga, or if a midfielder signing appears, I won't say the name because I don't know it.
But it's true that there could be that way in if Nico Paz also doesn't come, which it seems he won't, then there could indeed be an easier start than if Bellingham were fully there from the beginning.
Well, that'll be in August. I will be talking during these weeks about what we see in the Club World Cup, which we're really looking forward to starting. And well, I really appreciate it, man. Give a like to this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel, and also to Kaikes, who has also started a new adventure in something called Pickup. And we have already been with him live, and we will be there every week. Kike, a very big hug, man. A hug. Bye.